Sound check 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good evening. I'm Tucson Sentinel reporter Jim Ninsel, and I'll be moderator for this evening's debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections is the official sponsor of Arizona debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter the most to them, and cast an informed vote. Voters who are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email, debates@kc-a.com, text 408-302-1810, or phone 408-480-937-1253. We may not get to all the audience questions, but we will do our best. Tonight, we'll be hearing from candidates in Legislative District 23, which includes the Yuma area, parts of rural and suburban Maricopa County, and western Pima County. As this is a primary debate, candidates are competing against others in their own party to become the official party nominee in the general election. All registered voters, including independent voters, can vote in the primary. Independent voters can choose a single party ballot they wish to vote. We will kick off the evening by hearing first from the Democratic candidates for the Senate, who will debate their partisan opponent for approximately 1 hour, and then we'll move on to the House candidates and conclude around 8 p.m. Only the candidates currently debating will appear with their cameras and microphones on. Candidates, you will have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements and 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between opponents. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments after they conclude speaking, you may do so. I may limit responses for time management purposes, and we remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. Tonight, we have 2 candidates running for 1 state Senate seat. Democrat incumbent Senator Brian Fernandez and his challenger, Democrat Jesus Lugo. In the House, voters get to vote for 2 candidates. Your 3 candidates in this race include incumbent Representative Mariana Sandoval, Democrat Mateus Rosales, and Democrat James Jimmy Holmes. Let's bring in our Senate Democrat candidates. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting for opening comments. Closing comments will go in reverse order. Senator Fernandez, will you start the opening remarks, please? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. And first of all, I want to thank the Citizens Clean Elections Committee for all the work they do to put this on. Thank you so much. My name is Brian Fernandez. 3 years ago, I was fortunate and privileged to be appointed to the State House seat in District 23. District 23 includes Yuma, Goodyear, Tucson, and really all points in between. A year later, I was elected to the Senate, and this has been my 2nd year. I have worked this entire time along with both sides of the aisle for public education, for job training, for infrastructure. There are so many things that Arizona has as challenges, and I hope that we talk about some of these things during the debate. I think one of the biggest issues that I hear from voters every day is inflation, is the cost of living, housing. Throughout the district, whether you live in Yuma or Tucson or Goodyear, housing is becoming more expensive. It's becoming more scarce. Interest rates are increasing. And it's really made it difficult for people, particularly people at the beginning parts of their career, to really get started. Those are things that we've been working on in the legislature, and hopefully we'll do some more next year. I want to thank my opponent and all of the voters that are watching, and I look forward to hearing more from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lugo, your chance to speak. 1 minute introduction.
Hello, my name is Lugo Jr. I'm honored to stand before you as a proud Democrat, a passionate community activist running for state Senate in District 23. Born in Yuma, Arizona, raised in Gadsden, Arizona, I have deep roots in our community and a deep commitment to serving the people of Arizona. Over the past 15 years, I have dedicated my life to public service, advocating for the values and principles that define us. My campaign is not just about politics, it's about the people. It's about creating a future where every child can succeed, where families can thrive without fear of economic uncertainty, where elderly are treated with dignity and respect they deserve. It's about standing up for the reproductive rights, supporting mental health, addressing the substance abuse crisis with compassion. I am a hands-on leader with extensive experience addressing community issues, fluent in both English and Spanish, both a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in public administration. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lugo, we'll give you the first question. It's an education question. What should Arizona do to ensure every school has the resources needed to deliver quality education that prepares every child for the future? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. You know, I think a big issue that we have seen in my district, you know, I think the rural communities and the urban communities really don't have the same resources. And I believe that we gotta have the same resources, you know. The school vouchers too, I believe that's taking a lot of money from our public education. You know, I'm all against, you know, I do support everybody's free to choose if they want to go to private schools or using the school vouchers, you know, but I think the public school education should be used for public education. So I don't support school vouchers. I think that's taking money away from our public education.
All right, Senator Fernandez, same question to you. What should Arizona do to ensure every school has the resources needed to deliver quality education that prepares every child for the future? And you have 1 minute to respond.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, we need to make sure that we have equality when it comes to the actual funding for these areas. You know, there's a good portion of the funding that comes from property taxes, and like it or not, there are haves and have-nots in the states, and typically in our state, and typically the rural areas have a smaller tax base. They have fewer companies, just fewer places that are sort of the higher assessed value properties, and what that does is just affect the overall amount of money that the schools receive. You know, the voucher situation, I support the original purpose of vouchers, which were to help people that were disabled, the places where the schools weren't being able to really assist them in the way they needed. What it's become is sort of a boondoggle, and we've seen this in so many places. We've seen people buy ski trips, golf clubs, things like this, and it's just not working. So I think that we need to rein some of that in and channel that money back in the public school system. But even that's not going to be enough. I think that we need to figure out how much money we're going to need to ensure that every student be offered the education that they really deserve to really become the people that they want to be.
All right, thank you. And Senator Fernandez, this one will go to you first. What would you do to ensure more students succeed in reading and math? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, you know, reading and math, first of all, starts at home. So I think that, you know, we need to ensure that parents are spending that time with their kids. But one of the problems that we have in Arizona is not a parental fault. We don't have kindergarten, preschool in Arizona. We have some school districts that have adopted kindergarten, but not every school. I visited a lot of states. I was in Wisconsin fairly recently, and in Wisconsin, for instance, they have all-day preschool and all-day kindergarten. In fact, the preschool they call pre-5. And what that does is it ensures that every kid that starts the first grade knows how to read and knows basic math. That's as important. These are things that we can do. It's a relatively small amount. And when I say relatively small amount, about a quarter of what we're spending on vouchers right now, universal vouchers, that would allow us to have that universal kindergarten and universal preschool in Arizona. I think that would be a great step forward. I think that if we did that, it would do two things. First of all, it would allow the students, these young folks, to come into school more prepared. And every study that has looked into this has demonstrated that when you prepare kids at a younger age, they do better at an older age. So that's really important. But the second thing it would do, and I think this is equally important, is offer 2 years of childcare for parents. So parents now that, they have 5 years that they've got to figure out a way to utilize this our sort of, hodgepodge of parental or of childcare would then at least have 40% of that reduced. And I think that that's really important. I think that that's something that every parent should get behind. But again, like the most important thing is ensuring that that basic education gets started as early as possible.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lugo, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, thank you. I think early childhood education, invest in pre-K programs, ensuring access to high quality preschool programs to focus on fundamental reading skills. I think also it's very important to have parental involvement, educate the parents on the importance of reading to the child and engaging them in sample math activities at early age. Also, I think it's very important to have qualified teachers and to pay the teachers right. Ongoing training, provide teachers with ongoing professional development and the latest instruction strategy, math, and reading. So those are the issues that I will focus on.
Senator Mr. Lugo, you're your first one on here, and you mentioned the importance of teachers there. High quality teachers often leave Arizona or leave the profession altogether. How do you propose to keep them in classrooms? And do you have a plan to attract a new generation of teachers? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I think it's important to have programs and grants for people that want to become a teacher. Being a teacher is very important. So we also gotta pay them a good salary. We also gotta have benefits, better benefits for teachers. I think we also gotta have more community colleges that focus on programs on how to become a teacher. I think that's very important.
All right, Senator Lugo, or Senator Fernandez, excuse me. Same question to you. The high quality teachers will often leave Arizona or leave the profession altogether. How do you propose to keep them in classrooms? And do you have a plan to attract a new generation of teachers? You have 1 minute.
Right. So, I mean, as far as the new generation of teachers, we're doing that. We have teachers academies. We're teaching. We're getting, younger people involved. I mean, I think that we need to do more of that. We need to get more people involved in the communities that they live in to ensure that the teachers that teach at our schools are coming from our communities. I think that's most important. But I think pay, it's worth mentioning. So, if anyone that ever drives around the state, you'll see these big billboards from Texas school districts that's, say, read a starting salary that's 20 to 25% higher than the starting salary in the school district that those signs are placed. It's hard to compete with that. I wouldn't want to live in Texas personally, but I think other people that may not be familiar with it would. So I think that we need to figure out how we can increase the actual base teacher pay, but that costs money. And there's a whole host of questions that are associated with how we get more money in the classroom. But a lot of what we talk about here and a lot of what we should be talking about when it comes to education is the actual revenue that's going in. And I think that most would argue that needs to be increased.
All right, Senator Fernandez gets the first shot at this next question. How do you expand access to post-secondary education, including opportunities for dual enrollment for all students while in high school and expanded need-based financial aid for students to attend colleges, universities, and trade schools? You have 2 minutes.
So, I mean, we're already doing this, and I think that this is a really important. Arizona Western College is a good example of this. In the past 2 years, I've helped bring $25 million to Arizona Western College, and with that money, they've started many, many programs. Dual enrollment is available to students throughout Arizona. In Yuma, we take advantage of it at a higher rate than almost any other, I think, any school district in the state. We have students that leave high school and they've already got over an associate's degree. So, I mean, I think that those are really important things for us to continue funding. And again, those cost money and we need to continue funding that. But we also need to make sure that our community colleges, not just Arizona Western College, but the community colleges throughout the state, are providing enough of a job training incentive for students to decide to go ahead and take those classes and become, whether it be a dental assistant, plumber, or an electrician, or anything in between, that they have the opportunity to do that. And if they want to continue on and get a 4-year degree, almost every community college in Arizona is now able to award 4-year bachelor degrees. I think that we need to continue that. But I think that the most important thing is ensuring that the funding is there, so the community colleges can get the first crack at that apple. If a student decides that they want to go to a university, they should, and I think that I'd encourage that. But the university costs are much, much higher than a community college, and I think our community colleges have demonstrated that they can impart just as much knowledge as a university in those first 2 years.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Lugo, same question back to you. How do you expand access to post-secondary education, including opportunities for dual enrollment for all students in high school, and expanded need-based financial aid for students to attend colleges, universities, and trade schools? You have 1 minute.
I think that's very important in a community. I think we need to inform our students. I think I remember when I was going to high school and studying high school, I really didn't know about dual enrollment. That's something that a lot of people right now in high school and in my district don't know. So it's very good to inform the students about being able to do a dual enrollment. Show the students different programs that they could complete and finish. It's very important to inform our community about the opportunities that we have, because unfortunately our district really doesn't have good leaders, and they're really not that informed about the opportunities that we can achieve. Thank you for informing the community about different programs.
Tim, can I ask a question of Mr. Lugo? Is that allowed?
You all right with that, Mr. Lugo?
No, I'm not all right with that.
All right. I'd like to move on from education over to the water issue. And I think this question goes first to you, Mr. Lugo. At the federal level, the states are arguing about how to distribute a declining amount of Colorado River water, and groundwater pumping is causing aquifers to drop around the state. There have been a few bills to address this, but nothing major has been signed into law by the governor. What does the state need to do to assure a secure water supply for future generations? And you have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. I think water is a huge issue in Arizona, and I think we gotta inform the community about the issue that we're going through right now with water. I think we also gotta work with farmers too. I think that's a big issue right now in our district. There's a lot of water regulations that farmers are getting into. So we must understand that we need farmland here in Arizona. So we gotta work with farmers and work with corporations in order for us to be successful in our water usage. Develop better technology, informing the community about different plants that they could plant in their house so we could preserve water is very important. So we gotta work together in order for us to fix this issue.
All right, Senator Fernandez, you have 1 minute on this one. What does the state need to do to assure a secure water supply for future generations?
So the water law is very complicated. I mean, the first thing that we need to do is ensure that that our aquifers are healthy, and we have a few places in Arizona where they're not. Unfortunately, what happens is Maricopa County is growing at such a high rate that the people there just feel entitled to water just about everywhere in the state, from everywhere in the state. So, and we've seen this already where, Queen Creek was buying water from La Paz County, or trying to buy water from La Paz County, which was ultimately approved. So this is just an attempt for them to continue growing when they don't have the direct water. And really it's the difference, and we talk about this all the time, between real water and paper water. in theory, there's water there, and in theory, there's water, for the next 100 years, but it's not actually there. As far as the things that have been signed this year, we had a couple of bills that were signed regarding water. Not that many, mostly because we didn't feel like, and I voted against many of these. We didn't feel like a lot of these water laws had these bills related to water law had sort of a collaborative exposure that we were looking for. Many of them seemed just one-sided. So I hope that next year that we start really exploring this in a deeper way. I think that off the top of my head, we need to ensure that the urban areas in Maricopa County are really engaging in conservation. It's disheartening when we see lakes and grass being sprinkled along the side of the road. It's not even, usable grass. Those are things that we can change. But we can't conserve our way out of this crisis. We're going to eventually have to implement water augmentation. Taking water from some of our reservoirs is important, and eventually bringing water in from other places. So this is, by the time we get to that point, though, water is going to be very, very expensive, and we're going to conserve just on the basis of money. Off the top of my head, that's what we do.
Let me ask a follow-up on the water topic, and you go first this time, Senator Fernandez. Do you support the requirement in Arizona's Groundwater Management Act that developments in certain areas prove a 100-year assured water supply before building? Why or why not?
Oh, I 100% support this. And I think that we've seen some of these developers try to get around this. There's a trend right now of build to rent. And the reason why they do that is because building to rent does not require them to show that 100-year water supply. We also see wildcat subdivisions. We saw that in a place called Rio Verde, which is just east of Scottsdale. And one of the problems that we had is a real estate broker sold these places to these people, and they in those places they actually said there's no water here, but they were buried in fine print. And so people just bought these houses. Maybe they knew about it, maybe they didn't. But by the time they got there and the water was just not there, then they expected someone else to take care of it. And they were looking for Scottsdale at first to bring them water, and eventually their plan kind of developed with EPCOR. We got to keep that from happening in the future. We can't have subdivisions that are popping up in unincorporated areas. Go there and then ask for water. We need to have them ensure that wildcat subdivisions are not allowed unless they can show some level of water supply. And I mean, I think 100 years is a good one. We need the build to rent. We need to ensure that's not something that can happen anymore. And we also need to look at some of our practices when it comes to bringing companies in here. I think that the economic development in Arizona has been wonderful, and I want to continue that. But we need to ensure that the water supply is there for a lot of places, and that we're not just putting people in places and hoping that the water will just appear.
All right, over to you, Mr. Lugo. Do you support the requirement in Arizona's Groundwater Management Act that developments in certain areas prove a 100-year assured water supply before building, and why or why not?
Yeah, I do support it. I think ensuring water security for future generation is very important. Sustainable water use. The 100-year water plan promotes sustainable water use for practices that balance current consumptions with the need of future generations, ensuring that Arizona water and resources are preserved over the long term. Also, this is a great way by planning for a certain century ahead. The state can anticipate multiple potential water shortage, droughts, and other challenges by having this 100-year water plan.
All right, Mr. Lugo, you go first on this one. Governor Katie Hobbs has outlined plans for rural groundwater management through state-initiated active management areas. What's your assessment of these plans? Can you tell us what parts of the plan you like or you don't like? And you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm really not very familiar with that plan. Can you provide me a little bit more information about the plan?
Well, I would in certain areas, such as in the Buckeye area, there's a requirement that they have the 100-year water supply, and so the question is, is it necessary to require that?
Oh yeah, of course. I think that's very important. You see a lot of people nowadays trying to develop houses over there in my district, rural areas like Buckeye and Hilabin and Dayton, and I think that's very important to have this, to have regulation in those rural areas so people don't take advantage of our land.
Senator Fernandez, the active management areas, Governor Hobbs' proposal. What's your thought on those?
Sure. So 3 years ago, when I was in the House, I was part of a bipartisan group of legislators. Regina Cobb and Leo Basucci and others were involved in this. And what we were trying to do is require that before the Harquahala Reservoir, which is a reservoir that's it's east of the Arizona border with California and west of Phoenix. That water is essentially a one-time resource, and a lot of cities and EPCOR, which is the private water supply company, were trying to get access to that and bring that into CAP. So what we were asking for is before we did that we were required a rural management plan. Ultimately, the bill just ended up dying, and we didn't get the rural management plan anyway. But I think the rural management plan is crucial. I think we really need to ensure that we're able to. What it does essentially is allow the state. It's more than a 100-year water supply. It allows the state to have some amount of control over that area if the aquifer is in danger. And we have that in a couple places, the West Valley being one of them, but there's other places too that are in danger. There's push and pull because there's, some folks don't like the idea of the state sort of, having some sort of veto control over development. But we've seen people primarily right now in southeastern Arizona and Douglas, for instance, that actually the citizens want this. They're asking for this because what's happening is these industrial plants that are coming in, and we hear this with the Saudi farms, for instance, but there's others too, where they're digging for water, and they have the ability to dig for these expensive wells that are deep, deep down, and what they're doing is drying up the reservoir, or drying up the aquifer for everyone else, so that if you have a home and you're getting water, or if you're part of the city, that it's going to cost you more and more money to get deeper and deeper. Eventually, the water will be gone, but you'll probably run out of money before that happens. So it's really important that we come up with a plan on that, and I think that we're going in that direction. I support the governor in those efforts.
All right, I want to move over to housing, and Senator Fernandez, you'll go first on this one. Governor Katie Hobbs recently vetoed a bipartisan housing bill dubbed the Starter Homes Act that sought to address Arizona's growing housing crisis through deregulation of city zoning. Do you believe that deregulating city zoning laws is a crucial part of the solution to Arizona's housing crisis?
Housing is a complicated one. So we need more housing, and we all know this. I was fortunate to go to Taiwan with President Peterson and a bipartisan group of legislators, and we spoke with several of the companies and the TSMC, the government of Taiwan, but also the TSMC leadership. So we spoke with the vice president of TSMC, who actually selected Phoenix for the semiconductor plant. And I asked him what his challenges were. He said job training being one of them, and finding workers another. But he said one of the most important ones, were finding housing for his employees. He said one of the big problems they have is they'll get employees here and there's no housing for them. And so they've actually resorted to doing things like buying apartment complexes and using exclusively for their people, but that's not sustainable. We need to figure out a way to get more housing stock. I believe that we should have infill. I think that we should be, first of all, focusing on places within the city, but within the cities, rather than going towards the outskirts of, Buckeye and Goodyear first. I think that's really important. And we see that where there's land that really needs, I think needs development. But I think we also need to ensure that we're doing things like having multi-housing. So right now, typically the average subdivision is 6.2 houses per acre. Sounds like a lot, but it's not. And what that means is that first of all, water. 50% of our water, typically, although it can be more, is used on landscaping outside your house. That all that water is lost. When you flush your toilet, when you wash your dishes, that water gets to be recycled typically, but the outdoor water isn't. And so when you have places that are higher level, that are more dense, those places use less water because you're not wasting it on outside landscaping. So I mean, it's really important that we allow those kind of things. I think when it comes to the cities, though, we need to keep the cities in, I would say, a relevant place, allowing them to set sort of the guidelines as far as where they're going to go and how they're going to grow. But I think that there has to be a happy medium. We tried to find that. We were looking for that, and I think that we weren't able to get there this last year, but I hope to do that next year.
All right. Same question to you, Mr. Lugo. The Starter Homes Act was vetoed by Governor Hobbs. It sought to address Arizona's growing housing crisis through deregulation of city zonings. Do you believe that deregulating city zoning laws is a crucial part of the solution to Arizona's housing crisis? And you have 1 minute.
I think as it was the working class and part of the social part of being a social worker, I seen a huge issue right now in our community. A lot of people are struggling to pay their mortgages. A lot of people are struggling to buy a house. So I think we need to focus more on affordable housing. Build affordable housing for working class and for the lower class to have a house for them to live in. We're building a lot of houses in Arizona and in our district that a lot of people from my community, from my district, are not able to afford. So we need to focus more in building and building houses, affordable housing for those people, working class people and lower income communities.
All right.
Can
Thank you.
I say something, Tim, on that?
Well, I actually want to follow up just on zoning in general. It does play a significant role in shaping the development and character of our cities and communities. And in your view, and this question is to Mr. Lugo, but I think we can come back. You'll have a chance to respond as well, Senator Fernandez. Why do these zoning regulations exist, and should we actually allow a higher density development in existing established neighborhoods?
I think a lot of companies, a lot of corporations, you see a lot of corporations buying land and building houses, and those houses are not affordable for the regular class individuals, working class individuals, lower class individuals. So that I believe that's why it's important to have those zonings.
Senator Fernandez, do you want to talk a little bit about, why do these zoning regulations exist, and should we be allowing higher density development in established neighborhoods?
Sure. So, I mean, the genesis of zoning was actually not positive, but it's, I think, kind of gone the other way. Originally this was actually to keep, they call them red lines, to keep not racial harmony, but racial segregation. And they didn't want to have, a minority family move into, an area that they didn't deem for them. So they would have these zoning laws that required certain things, right? Like maybe a house that was too expensive for them to afford, maybe land that was, too large, like a acreage or something. But now what cities are doing, and I think it's actually, can be positive, is they're protecting citizens. So, the zoning laws will keep people from building like a smoke shop next to a school. Or adult store next to a neighborhood, and these are good things. But as far as like the zoning when it comes to a more density, I mean, I think that's really a product of NIMBYism. I think a lot of folks are worried that if you build a large complex near their home, that a home that they've lived in for some time, that their house will actually go down in value. And they might think it'll go down in value for a couple of reasons. One, because they think it will cheapen the neighborhood, But two, they might think, well, if there's more product on the market, that the supply and demand dictates that my price will go down, and that may or may not be true. But I think that we need to ensure that we're helping everyone. The only way that we're going to have affordable housing is to get more housing on the market. We just really need the starter home situation. That particular bill, I didn't really believe was actually going to help with starter homes. I think that was just a name that was given to it. For me, I felt like that was just helping developers to kind of cut their red tape so they could make a larger profit. But I do think that there's a way that we can do this that's going to be helpful not only to developers and not only to citizens, but also to cities, and allow them to continue the zoning that they need to do. So I hope to work on that next year as well.
All right. And Mr. Lugo, they're asking me if there's any possibility you could disconnect your AirPods and just work with your computer speaker and monitor the audio. It's your audio isn't as good as it might otherwise be. All right. In this question, we go first to Senator Fernandez. What specific policies will you support to make housing more accessible to middle and low-income earners?
So first of all, I think that we need to allow smaller lot sizes. There was a bill this year that was referred to ag to urban. It ended up dying for reasons that were unrelated to this part, but the proponents were mostly in Buckeye, also in Pinal County, and what it allowed people to do is that if you had land that was used in ag, you could retire that land, put housing on it, and the idea was that you would take the usage of water from, let's say, 9 acre-feet down to, and let's just say a number, 2 acre-feet. We were still negotiating that number when we put the bill up, but let's just say around 2 acre-feet. Sounds good. And in theory, it was good. But when I talked to some of the folks that were doing this, that own the land, they said, "Oh yes, this is going to be for affordable housing." And I said, "Great. How many houses per acre are you going to have?" And they said 2. And that's not affordable housing. You're never going to have affordable housing when you have 2 houses per an acre. I mean, land is just too valuable, and that's just going to raise the cost of the house, and it's going to lower the number of people that can actually afford the house. So I think having smaller lot sizes is a good way of ensuring that we're going to have more affordable housing. I think again, more density. So if we have townhomes, condos, I think that's a good way of lowering the cost. I think that in addition, again, going into some of these places that are underutilized, if we have land that's out here, let's just say there's a warehouse or there's a commercial building that hasn't been used. I mean, I think that we shouldn't be afraid of knocking that down and using it for housing. I mean, housing is what we really need right now. We don't need as much commercial development. We don't need as when it comes to office buildings. We're seeing, a lot of the people that we thought were going to return to the office are still working from home. Even in the state, we're not seeing as many people that are working from the office as we were accustomed to before the pandemic. So I think that we need to be mindful of that and use some of that land and some of those buildings for residential. I mean, those are the first things, but there's a lot of things that go along with it. I mean, I think that LIHTC is all that is a tax credit for companies that build affordable housing. It's the only way in Arizona that I know of that we can build affordable housing. We can't, in other states, people are able to require that a private developer devote, let's just say 30% of the condos in a building to be affordable. By law, we can't do that in Arizona. We can't force a developer to do that. So the only thing we can do is offer these tax credits. They're expensive. I complain about that all the time, but there's not much that we can do to bring that cost down. And that's really the only way that we can build affordable housing. And that's what I was going to bring up earlier.
Okay. Mr. Lugo, specific policies you would support to make housing more accessible to middle and low income earners. And you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I think, like I said, housing is a big issue in Arizona. Most of the people right now, it's better for them to rent than to own a house. But we need to develop more programs, expand the financial assistance, down payment assistance program, lower the interest rate for the loan. We also got to educate our community about the importance that it is having good credit, and educating the community and the kids about credit. Also, first time buyers home buyer program is very important. And I do believe that we need to implement a tax incentive for those people buying for first time buying a home. But yeah, I think affordable housing is very important. We continue to in the steps that we're doing right now, developing houses. Uh, it's hard, We're gonna have a lot of houses that people are not gonna be able to buy. So we gotta lower the prices of the house. It's very important to do some regulations, because most of the people in today and our community are not able to afford a house.
All right, I want to
Thank you.
shift gears from housing over to abortion. Mr. Lugo, you'll go first on this one. You'll have 2 minutes. In your opinion, should abortion be illegal in all or almost all cases? Should it be illegal in most cases? Should it be legal in most cases? Or should it be completely legal?
Thank you. I'm a pro-choice candidate. I'm a social worker. So I'm out in the community hearing stories where victims of domestic violence, victims that have been through with rape and stuff like that. And as a social worker, I have learned that we need to provide resources and opportunities for each individual to make their own decisions. So I believe in freedom. I believe in freedom to choose. I believe that everybody has a different life, have different experience. So I believe that the government shouldn't be involved in making our decision. We gotta respect each other opinion, and we gotta understand that everybody lives different lives, different situations. So everybody gonna make different decisions. But I would never implement my views or my policies on people. I think everybody should have the freedom to make decisions over their body. It's not up to me what I think. It's up to the individual and what they think is best for them and their future. So that's my policy. That's why I'm a pro-choice candidate. As a social worker, like I said, I work with victims of domestic violence, homelessness, people dealing with substance abuse, and I provide resources and opportunities for them to make their own decisions. And same with abortion. I believe in freedom to choose, and freedom for them to make their own decision based on their situation and their values and what they're going through in their life.
All right, let's give Senator Fernandez a chance on this one. 1 minute, Senator. And in your opinion, should abortion be illegal in all or almost all cases? Should it be illegal in most cases? Should it be legal in most cases? Or should it be completely legal?
I don't even need 1 minute. I think that the government has no business telling any person what to do with their body. I think that a person that is pregnant can make that choice for themselves in consultation with their medical provider. And I just don't, I don't subscribe to the theory that a government should be telling someone what to do.
All right. Here's a question. My friend Bill Buckmaster is a longtime radio host here in Tucson. Always likes to throw this question out in debates. He calls it the setting the record straight question. I'm going to give you both a minute on this one to answer about anything that's been said about you in this campaign that you feel is inaccurate or wrong, and you want to set the record straight on that. And we will start with you, Senator Fernandez.
I mean, if someone said anything about me, I'm not aware of it. So I don't think I have anything to set the record straight on.
All right. How about you, Mr. Lugo?
Oh, I really haven't heard anything about me either, But I just think there's a lot of people out there, saying, why am I running against Brian Fernandez? He's an incumbent. And I do believe that I'm running against him because I do believe in choosing. I do believe that I'm better qualified than him. I have more community experience than him. My actions speak louder than words. I'm in the community every day, hearing the stories, hearing the issues that are affecting our community. I'm bilingual. I'm able to speak to my community. I have more education than Brian Fernandez. I have a master's degree. So that's why I'm better qualified than than Brian Fernandez for this position. You know, I have dedicated my entire career in helping people in need. You know, I understand the immigration process. I have worked with immigrants. I have talked to over 10,000 immigrants, heard their stories, have a lot of compassion with immigrants. I've talked to victims of domestic violence, people dealing with substance abuse. So I know a lot about the community. I know what we need in order for us to improve Arizona and improve our district. Thank you.
All right. I want to switch over to infrastructure. This one will go first to you, Mr. Lugo. Infrastructure, critical for economic growth. What areas of Arizona's infrastructure do you believe need the most investment, and how would you prioritize that funding? And Mr. Lugo, you have 2 minutes.
Of course, you know, I think I live in District 23 consists of very rural areas, you know, and I've been all around my district. I've been to Ajo, Arizona. I live in Gadsden, Arizona, and in San Luis, Arizona, Somerton, and we see a big issue right now with the streets. You know, we have a lot of bumps in our streets. We don't have the best infrastructure, so that's something that I'm gonna focus on, bringing that infrastructure to rural areas like my hometown. I think we deserve the best, you know, even though we sometimes we don't get the best leaders in our district, but I do believe that we also do a lot of for Arizona, and we do need the best infrastructure in our roads and in our community. Thank you.
All right, Senator Fernandez, infrastructure. What areas of Arizona's infrastructure do you believe need the most investment, and how would you prioritize that funding?
Yeah, so first of all, my first year in the House, I was able to get $35 million for the expansion of Cesar Chavez Boulevard, and I was really proud of that. Also working with Representative Dunn, I was able to get money for Highway 95 to be expanded up to YPG. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer and closer. You know, one of the things that my old friend, who unfortunately just passed away, Gary Knight, who was chair of the State Transportation Board, used to always talk about is, where does the money come from? So typically we have what we call HERF funds. So you know, these are monies that when you put gas in, you know, gas tax, when you put gas in your car, you know, that money goes into a fund and that's dispersed throughout the state. There's a percentage that goes to rural versus urban, and for many years that worked out well. The problem is our state grew. So our roads grew, our needs grew. And every time we build a road, we count on 10 years later having to actually maintain that road, which just, you know, obviously costs more money. More people are using cars that are less and less dependent on fuel, and to the point where some are electric. And I think in the future, we're going to see hydrogen vehicles, and those are going to also not use gas. So every time we see that happen, what we do is we're seeing fewer and fewer dollars that are actually going into our system that are eventually going to be sent out to both the urban and, of course, the rural areas. We need to figure out a new revenue source. Gary Knight had many ideas, and Councilman Knight had many ideas, and you know, some of them might have worked, some of them might not have, but ultimately that brings us back to what we always have in the state, which is a revenue problem. We have a lot of needs. We're a growing state, and our previous governor spent 8 years cutting taxes every year. I'm not for high taxes either, but I think in the end we need to determine what our needs are before we cut taxes, and he didn't. He just felt like we should continue cutting taxes and we'll figure it out. Well, what we figured out is that we don't have enough. We don't have enough when it comes to roads. We don't have enough when it comes to education. We don't have enough when it comes to criminal justice. Our prisons are costing us more and more money. We're putting more and more people away for longer and longer amounts of time, and we don't have a way of paying for that. So that's my answer to your question.
All right, we've got about 10 minutes left here, and I want to talk about immigration before we leave. And this one will go first to Senator Fernandez. How do you propose to balance the humanitarian needs at the border with the imperative for a functioning border that supports commerce?
Well, I mean, first of all, I get asked about border from time to time. And the border is actually, that's a federal issue. So when it comes down to it, what the enforcement of the border and you know, even the commerce that goes back and forth, that's all regulated by the federal government. We wouldn't want states to regulate the border because if every state did it and every state did it a different way, could be a disaster. So we depend on the federal government to do that, and I understand that people have a problem with the way it's been done. I always say that we've had 4 presidents, and each one of those presidents had 2 years where they had unilateral control over the government, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and all 4 of them failed to do anything about the immigration system. So we need to ensure that we have a federal government that is our partner, that is both policing the border and also ensuring that commerce can continue going back and forth. I think that for my part, I think that we just need to ensure that we're continuing to understand that Mexico is our neighbor. They're our biggest trading partner. We do a lot of business with them, and we want to continue to do that. And especially in Yuma, where our agriculture, all of our farmers are heavily dependent on labor from Mexico. And our cities are heavily dependent on the revenue of the folks coming from Mexico to shop. So we need to continue that. We need to ensure that we're not limiting that in any way. But I think that's my answer.
All right. Mr. Lugo, 1 minute. How do you propose to balance the humanitarian needs at the border with the imperative of a functioning border that supports commerce?
Yeah, thank you. I'm the only candidate here that have experience in immigration. I've been an admin in immigration shelter, so I understand this issue, and I have lived in a border town for my entire life. I think that people, the Republican Party and people that are really not that informed talk about the border, and the border is not the issue. We need to we need to develop a comprehensive immigration reform that will allow those individuals that want to come to the United States and work, to have a better future for them and their family. Like I said, I talked to around 10,000 immigrants face to face, and I heard their stories. I heard everything they go through in order for them to go to that border. And we gotta have more compassion, we gotta have more compassion, more empathy, and we gotta treat each other as equal. In the end of the day, we're all the same. The only thing different is what we see each other from outside. So the border is not gonna make a difference. If you've been to the border, people are not jumping the border. People are turning themselves in to the border patrol to ask for asylum. But the solution is for us to develop immigration reform so those people could come. And at the end of the day, we gotta acknowledge that in the United States, most of us come from immigrants. Our ancestors are immigrants, were immigrants, and we're here because of the sacrifice that they did. And we're here because of the sacrifice that they did for us, And we shouldn't deny those opportunities to the immigrants coming to the United States. Like I said, most of them they're coming here to work. They're coming here to better the future of their families. So that's what I think. I think we gotta have more compassion, more empathy for immigrants, and be more informed. Because unfortunately, our current immigration process is not really that good. We treat immigrants really bad. So we gotta have more compassion, more empathy, treat each other with love and respect and dignity.
Can I jump in here? You mentioned the asylum seekers on the border. And should Arizona expand upon Governor Hobbs' initiatives to support the asylum seekers and ensuring humane treatment and their ability to move through our communities and either stay here or move on to where they're supposed to go after they've been processed through the Border Patrol?
Yeah, I think the new Biden new policy that he implemented, he's not allowing people over 18 to come to the United States to ask for asylum. Now they gotta ask for asylum in their state of origin or in Mexico. So that's not going through right now. With children, with minors, with children under 18, those are minors. They're able to come to the United States still, and people are talking about child trafficking and stuff like that. But I have worked directly with ORR, that is the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and I seen the huge process that they go through in order for them to make sure that those kids are taken with a sponsor, where a person that cares about them, that person that's gonna make sure that they're gonna go to court. But a lot of people don't know this process, but they ask for a lot of information from their sponsor. They ask for paperwork, they ask for a good apartment for them, for that child, so they could live there in that apartment. They also ask for income, and they also make sure that Del Shadow is going to continue attending, going to court in order for them, in order for the kid to ask for asylum. But we got to inform our community more. You know, a lot of people really don't know this information that I'm providing to you guys. So it's important for us to have compassion and to have empathy. Thank
Senator,
you.
as a question about whether Arizona should expand upon Governor Hobbs' initiatives to support asylum seekers in order to ensure their humane treatment as they either integrate into our community or travel elsewhere where they have sponsors waiting to take them in.
Yeah, sure. So I worked with the governor on this, the governor's office on this. 92% of the people that are coming across the border in Arizona, now I can't speak for other states, but in Arizona, are actually going to other places. So one of the things that we do with this money that you're referring to, we bring them in, we talk to them. They're vaccinated if necessary and tested for certain diseases, and then they are asked where they want to go. Do they have family somewhere? And the vast majority of them have family. Typically, they're in bigger cities on the East Coast, just because that's where immigrant populations usually end up from some of these folks from these places. So we offer them the funding to get to those places. That's been very helpful. The alternative is actually much worse. The alternative is a lot of people staying in the border communities, which really don't have the resources to be able to take care of these folks. The places like Yuma, Douglas, Sierra Vista, Nogales, they just are not able to do that. So allowing them to get to the places that they need to go to their families, where if they have a sponsor and they have people that understand the rules in our country, is probably the best thing for us.
All right. This is we have about 4 minutes left, and we want to get those 1 minute closing statements in. So I'm just going to ask each of you to answer in 30 seconds. How confident are you that the 2020 presidential election and the 2022 midterm elections in Arizona were carried out accurately? And we'll start with you, Senator Fernandez.
Very confident.
Okay. Over to you, Mr. Lugo. How confident are you?
I'm very confident.
Not very confident.
No, very confident. Yeah.
Oh, you are very.
I don't believe in conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. I think there, like everybody knows, in my district, I think that there has been multiple people that were charged for ballot harvesting, but that didn't affect the election.
All right.
And
we're just on the edge here of wrapping things up. So we're going to go to 1 minute closing statements. And Senator Fernandez, you went first on the opening statements. So Mr. Lugo, 1 minute closing statement here.
Supporting my campaign for state senate in District 23 means investing in a future where every Arizona has access to the resources and opportunity they need to thrive. My commitment to sustainable water management, economic stability, and comprehensive healthcare and the quality education reflects the core values of our community. Together, we can address the multi-phase challenges we face, from ensuring the source of water supply, fostering economic growth, to protecting our environment and enhancing public service. By choosing to support my campaign, you are endorsing a vision of Arizona that prioritizes the well-being of all residents, champions the individuals, and build a foundation for long-term prosperity. Join me in this journey to a brighter, more sustainable future for District 23 and beyond. Together, we can make a real difference and create lasting positive change for our community. Let's work together to enhance our children, grandchildren, and a better life here in Arizona. Thank you very much. And vote for Jesus Lugo Jr. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Mr. Lugo. And over to you, Senator Fernandez, for a 1 minute closing statement.
Thank you so much, Jim, for moderating. It's been very helpful. And thank you so much for the Arizona Clean Elections. This is a really great program that they offer. And thank you so much for those of you that are watching. I want to, first of all, I'm very grateful for being elected. I'm very grateful for originally being appointed. I've tried to prove my worth, and I think that I have. I've worked on public education. I've ensured that last year that we added money to the state schools, and this year that we didn't cut them, even though we cut many other things. I've worked with universities. I've worked with community colleges to ensure that, for instance, Arizona Western College we're allowed more money to give to programs that are actually helping folks, both young and older folks, that want to continue their education, that want to improve the skills that they have to offer. That's really important. I also have been working with developers. I've been working with water law experts to ensure that the next generation of Arizona, not only do we have the education, not only the job training, but that we have housing and that we have an assured water supply so that they can continue to grow. And finally, I've been working in economic development. I've traveled to many countries since I've been here. I've traveled before as well, and talked with companies throughout the world to ensure that they understand that Arizona is a place to do business, and to bring them here. So I want to thank everyone again, and I hope that you continue to support me.
All right, this concludes our Senate debate. Hang on, we'll be talking to the House candidates in Legislative 23 next. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating. To the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves before the July 30th primary election. And we encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for accurate, official voting information. We'll be right back. And now I'd like to welcome you to our second debate of the evening, featuring the candidates for the House of Representatives in Legislative District 23, which includes the Yuma area, parts of rural and suburban Maricopa County, and the western part of Pima County. If you're just joining me, I'm Tucson Sentinel reporter Jim Ninsel, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. The Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections is the official sponsor of Arizona debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter to them the most, and cast an informed vote. Voters who are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email, debates@kc-a.com, text 408-302-1810, or by phone 480-937-1253. We may not get to all the audience questions, but we will do our best. As this is a primary election debate, candidates are competing against each other within their party to become the official party nominee. All registered voters, including independent voters, can vote in the primary. Independent voters can choose a single party ballot if they wish to vote. We continue now with 3 Democratic candidates for 2 seats in the Arizona House of Representatives, who will debate their partisan opponents for approximately 1 hour. Only the candidates currently debating will appear with their cameras and microphones on. Candidates, you will have a 1 minute for your opening and closing statements and 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between the opponents. If you feel you need to respond to another candidate's comments after they conclude speaking, you may do so. I may limit responses for time management purposes, and we remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. Candidates running for the State House of Representatives in Legislative District 23 are incumbent Representative Mariana Sandoval, Democrat Matthias Rosales, and Democrat James Jimmy Holmes. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting for opening comments. Our closing comments will go in the reverse order. So, Mr. Holmes, you'll start the opening remarks, please. You have 1 minute. I think you're muted, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you for telling me I'm muted. So
All right,
anyway,
let's start that
you,
over.
Jim. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Accumulations of Arizona. I am Jimmy Holmes. I am running for Arizona House of Representatives. I am running a clean elections campaign. Thank you very much, Clean Elections. I am an Arizona native. I grew up, was born and raised on the west side of Phoenix. I now live in Goodyear. I've lived there for 13 years. I am running for Arizona House of Representatives because I do believe what is going on here in our state and our country, I'm not happy with, and I'd like to see a lot change. So I also think that if we, as politicians, start putting the people over politics, I think we can get a lot more done. And so, yeah, that's all.
All right, Mr. Rosales, your opening statement, please. 1 minute.
Thank you, Jim, and also thank you to Clean Elections, and thank you for hosting this discussion tonight. It's an honor to be here. My name is Matias Rosales. I'm the child of immigrants and a husband. I've been going on my 30 years of marriage with my lovely wife, father of 4, and a local businessman. Many years ago, I made the decision as well to move to rural Arizona and start and grow and raise my family here in the area. When I first got here, I started a business, a video store back then. If everybody remembers Blockbusters and Hollywood Video, that's what I brought to our community because I saw a need here for our residents. After a couple of years went by, Netflix came out, streaming video, and I had to think about what to do next. So giving back to my community, I went ahead and decided to become a realtor. As a realtor, I've served my community here in my district. I've helped over 1,000 families to become homeowners, first-time buyers, partnering up with a local nonprofit that focuses on affordable housing, and begin that generational wealth for those families. Through my business, volunteering, I'm a Make-A-Wish grantor, serving on my current, I'm a city council member here for the city of San Luis. I've been here serving already on my 12th year, finishing my 3rd term. I'm committed to giving back to my community. And that's a little bit about myself.
Okay, and then Representative Sandoval, your 1 minute opening statement, please.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the Clean Elections Committee for hosting this debate and Jim Nitzel for moderating. Thanks also to all the folks watching online. Your engagement and support means a lot. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Mariana Sandoval, and I'm currently serving as State Representative for Legislative District 23, which encompasses parts of Maricopa, Yuma, Pima, and Pinal counties, 230 miles of U.S.-Mexico border, and 3 tribes, with Tohono O'odham being one of the largest in our district. And I also want to thank every single person that voted for me. It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve you. I first ran to help strengthen education in Arizona, to help give folks access to healthcare, improve our economy, and protect our natural resources. My mother, an immigrant, taught me the value of commitment of family, hard work, and service to others. I'm the proud wife of a UA 469 union member. My husband is a plumber. As a mother, like many parents across Arizona, I work tirelessly to secure a brighter future for our children. I'm also a small business owner, so I understand the struggles and I advocate to ensure the success of small business owners across Arizona. Most of all, I'm not a career politician. I do not come from wealth, but rather from humble beginnings. So I understand and I share the struggles of everyday working families because I live them. Your tax dollars pay us legislators $24,000 a year. So these experiences, they drive my commitment to represent Arizona working families. Policy is personal to me. I hope to earn your support in your vote on July 30th and again in the general election on November 5th. Y para aquellos que hablan español y están viendo este debate, les agradezco su atención e interés en informarse sobre sus candidatos. Espero poder ganarme su apoyo y su voto en las elecciones primarias del 30 de julio y de nuevo en las elecciones presidenciales del 5 de noviembre. Gracias. Thank you.
All right. And we've talked about a lot of these topics in the earlier hour, but we're going to return to them, get your guys' thoughts on them. We're going to start with Representative Sandoval, and I want to ask you, what will you do to ensure more students succeed in reading and math? You have 2 minutes.
Well, we got to start by fully funding our schools. I mean, it is the reason why I ran. In 2007, when the recession happened, the funding for schools was cut, and it hasn't been restored since. To the contrary, we just signed a budget last Saturday where more funding was taken, especially from the low-income children in Title I schools. And so the pundits, the people that do the math, I am not an economist, but they were estimating $1 billion deficit in funding. And with the continued growth of vouchers, which I think it was almost $745 million, it makes it worse for public schools. 10% of our students attend private schools, and 90% of our students attend K-12 schools, and they're getting $7.5 million versus 745 that the 10% is getting. So we need to make our funding, we need to restore it, we need to make it equitable, and we need to rework the funding formula for schools so that kids starting from nursery, third grade, we can start early intervention programs that will help them get ready for preschool and help them be successful in their primary, middle school, and high school years and on to college. Because right now, what we have is a school to prison pipeline, and we need to change that and assure that our kids are not going in that route by fully funding our K-12 public schools and implementing early childhood programs.
All right. Mr. Rosales, you're up next. And what would you do to ensure more students succeed in reading and math?
At the state level, we need to work together to make sure the funding is provided to our state and to our residents. Myself, when I first moved to Arizona, I was surprised to find out that my young kids, my babies at that time, couldn't attend kindergarten. My community in rural Arizona didn't have that option, only allowed one class for the district for the year, and it would usually get filled up. I thought that was something that was across the state, but then I go visit other parts of the state, like Queens Creek, Maricopa County, other areas, and they did have full day kindergarten. So we need to make sure that the education level is equal across, including our rural communities, make sure that the funding is there to be able to provide it, and these districts are able to provide these services to our residents. And then we also need to make sure, especially for the rural communities, for those parents that might be English as a second language, they understand the importance and offer maybe some additional tutoring, volunteerism in afternoons after school, for them to be able to also to understand what we're asking for the students to learn at the young age, because preschool and kindergarten, it is the most important part of a young person's mind as they grow and go into first grade. So we need to work together and find the funding to make our education equal across the state.
All right, Mr. Holmes, what will you do if elected to ensure more students succeed in reading and math? Oh, I think you're muted again.
Right. I gotta remember to do that when I unmute it. Thank you. So yeah, I think math and reading are very important. All aspects of school are very important for our children. Children are our most important things in most of our lives. We should be focused on all aspects of our children and what they're doing and where they're going. Funding for schools is very important, and it needs to be needed very seriously in finding ways to fund not just urban areas, but rural areas and so forth. We should be asking the teachers as to what they would think they could use to better provide that in the classrooms. Not only their salaries, but the environment they're in, the benefits they're getting, the overall treating of the people that are educating our children. And I want to focus on the voucher program. I don't think it's a very good thing to be happening because it's not benefiting our public schools. Our tax money is going for profit. These places are putting a profit over our children in a lot of ways, and I think that is wrong. And that's why I am so much for our public school system and would like to see it much better than it is today, and do everything I can to support our teachers and anybody in the school systems themselves.
All right. I want to stay with education here. And I think for this one, it's your turn to go first, Mr. Rosales. How would you expand access to post-secondary education, which could include opportunities for dual enrollment for all students while in high school, and expanded need-based financial aid for students to attend colleges, universities, and trade schools?
You know, we're fortunate that our rural community, we've been focused for the past 5-6 years on those dual classes for our students. Good example, my son, he's in 7th grade right now, and since he was in 6th grade, he started college classes. A lot of it comes down to educating the parents and informing them of these available resources that are available here in our districts. And that goes to show, to your previous question, how important kindergarten and preschool are, because by the time our kids are reaching the end of their elementary education, they're starting these dual enrollment classes. Going into junior high, continuing that education. My daughter, when she graduated high school, she graduated a little bit short of an associate degree. So it's an important tool that we have, and making sure that it's being offered to all the districts across the state, and doing some outreach to the parents so they know that these tools are available. Because one thing is, we will tell the students in the school system, but kids might not come back home and give that information to the parents. We all know how kids are. It's not that they're being deceiving, but kids don't want extra homework, but it's the responsibility of the parent to be able to see what options are available for their youth. And then for trade school, we have great partnerships here with the local community colleges, the AWC, Senator Fernandez mentioned earlier. They're offering great programs for our high school students that are not seeing a college as their next step. That's not made for everybody. But we need to make sure that those programs are there, and we're seeing them coming back to our state because it is an important tool for the economic growth for the state of Arizona. Many years ago, 10, 20 years ago, education system went away from the trade tech sector, but we've noticed that we made a mistake by that, and now we're coming back to it. So outreach to the community, to the residents, and making sure that the funding is available for those additional programs.
All right. Mr. Holmes, your thoughts on expanding access to post-secondary education, including opportunities for dual enrollment for all students while in high school, expanded need-based financial aid for students to attend colleges, universities, and trade schools?
Sure. Yeah, like I was saying, I mean, all children are very important to our society. It should be taken very seriously and very important. I mean, they should not be left behind in any way. The funding, like you say, everything is a funding. Just if I think if we find these dollars, and I'm for taxes are a good thing. They finance whatever we need. We all need to pay taxes to finance what we use. But yet raising taxes just because it's an easy way out is wrong. I think these funds can be found in different ways, through different means, through savings and everything else, to better all these programs for our children, in the sense of not only education, but food, hours. The infrastructure of the schools are deteriorating beyond what we've ever seen before, probably. This should not happen in this country or this state. And I want to do everything I can. I want to get with the educators to educate me as to what we can do better for everybody.
All right, Representative Sandoval. Don't want to give you a promotion before you. Do you want to expand access to post-secondary education, opportunities for dual enrollment? You've heard the question.
Yes to all of those things. So as you know, or you may or may not know, I served on a high school board before this. So that was my jam, right? Working with high school students, working with teachers, and learning what the needs were in the community, learning from the teachers as to what they needed for the students, and making sure that they had access to the dual enrollment credit where it was available. We fought for that. We fought for my former school board member, Mary Kay Utic, and we fought to make sure that low income, that we formulated a form that wasn't available for people that were low income so that they can access funds and programs that they didn't know about. We would go out in parking lots at the football games and hand out the applications to the parents as they were going to the football game so that they would know that this was available for them. We work with the administration to make sure that they had access to the CTE classes. I was working with the trades because, like I said, my husband is a tradesman, a UA 469 plumber, to try to bring the trades in partnership with the school district so that we can get trades in our high school district and get those kids that, you know, not everyone wants to go to college, and that's okay. We need people to go into the trades. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need all of it. And so I have been working to make community college, in college in general, affordable, especially to low income students. I went to a Title I school. Like I know what it's like. I was on a free and reduced lunch. So I understand based on my own experiences what the needs are. And so I work with the school, and I worked at the legislature to make sure that, because part of the negotiating the budget, they were going to take out the funding for the dual enrollment credit. And we fought for education. We don't want any cuts. Unfortunately, there are going to be hits to the universities, but that credit is back in there. And the community colleges are able to use that, not just for careers or degrees, but they can do it also for trades. For example, in Arizona Western College, we negotiated $15 million for the budget last time for their nursing program because they need nurses in Yuma County. And so I am for all of it. The money is there. The budget is our moral document. We just need to make sure that we're investing in our community, in our kids, and our future in education, which is how we attract businesses and how we get on the map so that people big corporations would want to come here to Arizona. Part of the reason they don't is because our education system is 49th in the nation. Like, how can we be worse than the South?
I want to follow up. There's been some talk about the empowerment scholarship accounts tonight, the voucher programs that allow private schools to accept taxpayer money from the students who would ordinarily go to a public school. In terms of these schools that are accepting the ESAs, should they be subject to the same requirements and regulations that a public school is expected to follow? And we'll start with Mr. Holmes on this one.
Yes, they should be, but overall, like I say, for-profit schools, we've got to be careful with this because they are for-profit. Where are they putting their profits over our children? So I'd like to take a look at all that, be honest with you. I'd like to take a look as to whether that is the best course for the future of our children, as to whether or not, because that is money spent that we're talking about that we don't have for our public schools. And then, so like I say, all the funding that I could actually just come up with, wherever it may be, I'd like to take a look as to where that should go, especially in our public schools, and make it a whole lot better than what it is.
All right. Representative Sandoval, your thoughts on whether schools that receive the ESA funds should be subject to the same reporting requirements and regulations that a public school is required to
100%.
follow.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the problem. We're writing blank checks with no accountability and no reporting and no proof of learning. So all this money is going out and we don't know if the kids are learning. We don't know what that money is being spent for. There's no accountability. And for these private or charter schools, they don't have to play by the same rules that public schools have to play by. I'll give you an example. There was a charter school in Goodyear a few years ago. On the 100th day, school districts get their funding. On the 101 day, the parents showed up. The school had gotten the funding. The owners of the school were gone. And so now those parents, those students were left with no school. And guess who had to absorb those students with no additional funding? Public schools, because by law, they have to educate anyone that walks through the door. That's not the same for charter or private schools. They can decide to invite you to leave. They can decide who they accept. They can decide whatever they want. They don't, in the micro schools, the money that's going for private schools, there's no accountability. As the K-12 has reporting, every penny needs to be accounted for. There is so much that the public school system has to do and report that the other 10% are not doing. And so we need to make that equitable. Absolutely. They need to have the same regulations if they're going to take that funding and not just, pick and choose the students they want. I do believe that we should continue with ESAs for those families that need them. Families that have special needs, which is the intended purpose of the ASAs, and families that have needs that the public schools cannot meet. I support that, but I do not support the universal expansion of vouchers.
All right, Councilman Rosales, your thoughts on whether private schools that accept ESA vouchers should be held to the same regulations and requirements as a public school?
Thank you, Jim. I feel that every parent has the right to choose education that's best for their child. Coming in a rural community, we see that difference in education level. But with that said, I feel that agreeing with Representative Sandoval, if a private school agrees to accept our tax dollars, there needs to be guardrails and there needs to be accountability held. We can't just be writing checks and not monitoring these schools. My focus is on public schools where our majority of our students do study, but we all understand the importance of education. Every parent has the right to decide if they want to do that. Here in rural Arizona, we do see some benefits and some families that do get the benefit for the original intended program that ESA was started with when it was originally implemented. And for our state, it's a growing economy and the demands of the educated workforce, as mentioned before by Ms. Sandoval as well, we need to make sure every child is ready for college and ready for the job market as soon as they graduate from high school, whether it's public school or private school. But there needs to be guardrails and accountability and make sure that those that are abusing the system are held responsible and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
I want to ask a question about school discipline, and this one will go first to Representative Sandoval. Superintendent of Public Instruction Tom Horn has suggested that lenient student discipline policies are one of the major reasons that teachers leave the profession. Do you agree that student discipline is a problem, and what is your solution as a lawmaker to address the issue?
Well, I had a really good relationship with the educators at the district that I served in, and I have a very good relationship with the president of the Arizona Education Association and many educators in the community. And the number one reason why teachers are leaving the profession is the pay. It's the lack of respect for the profession. I mean, I'm not going to say that there isn't. Some teachers are overwhelmed because of the lack of resources. Some teachers have to have more students that they can handle. But the number one reason is pay and lack of respect for the profession. My daughter was a recent graduate a year ago. She taught for a semester at a school, and she's not going back because It's a Title I school. They don't have enough resources. One day she had to deal with almost 50 students. She taught music, and the pay isn't that great. And so she said, you know, this is not for me. And so we need to do better. We need to pay our teachers what they deserve, because without teachers, there would be no other profession. And we need to start giving them the respect that they deserve. And we don't value education. And that's a problem. That's why we're seeing this exodus from the teaching profession.
All right, Councilman Rosales, your thoughts. Is student discipline a problem, and such a problem that teachers are leaving the profession? And if so, what is your solution as a lawmaker to address the issue?
I can speak for what I know and who I've spoken to here in my community. I know we're losing a lot of teachers, not to the profession, but leaving to our neighboring state, California, which many teachers could drive 45 minutes over till Central and get paid California wages. At the end of the year, they're making an additional $25,000 a year by commuting that extra hour on a daily basis. I mean, going one way, coming back. So I think a lot of the issue is the funding and the pay that our teachers are not receiving. As a realtor and as a business owner, we host an annual backpack event where we help our students here in our community with backpacks, school supplies to help the teachers, because as we all hear the stories, teachers not only are getting underpaid, but they have to provide supplies for their classrooms, you know, folders, backpacks, crayons, tissues. I mean, as a parent, when my kids start school, I get a list of stuff that the teachers recommend that we provide for our students. Again, that's where the teachers get overwhelmed. They get overburdened and don't see the value in continuing in the career that they were excited to when they went to college to graduate from. So I think funding the pay that the teachers are receiving is one of the educators that they're receiving is one of the biggest issues. There might be, you know, some teachers that, you know, I've seen the change in discipline and policy that might be ready to retire or decided to retire because of the changes. I can't speak for that, but I agree in regards to pay is probably going to be the biggest issue why teachers are leaving the industry or relocating.
Mr. Holmes, your thoughts on the issue of discipline, and is that what's driving teachers out of the profession? And if so, what should the state be doing?
Well, I don't believe it's discipline. If it is, I'd like to hear more about it, because I hadn't heard any of that from over the 3,000 doors that I've seen trying to get myself where I'm at. But the discipline should be between the parent and the child, and I do believe that the schools may have some disciplinary action. I'm not sure what that is today, but I'd like to find out, and I don't want to go too far with that in the schools. But I don't think that's driving the teachers out. And from what my experience is to talking to teachers, what I've done is over the classrooms being too large. It's the supplies, like Mr. Mateus has said. It's the supplies that are provided. All of this burden on teachers to provide what they have to provide to our children because the funds are not provided by us. So I like to step back and take a look at all this to make it right, like I say, for the teachers, for our children, for our community, and whatever happens.
All right. We're halfway through this and we're still on education. So I want to shift gears a little bit and go over to housing issues. Governor Katie Hobbs recently vetoed a bipartisan housing bill dubbed the Starter Homes Act that sought to address Arizona's growing housing crisis through deregulation of city zoning. Do you believe that deregulating city zoning laws is a crucial part of the solution to Arizona's housing crisis? And Mr. Rosales, or Councilman Rosales, you're up first on this.
I have a unique perspective on that because sitting on city council as a small community, I understand what the bill was trying to do, and I applaud the governor for its veto. In regards to, because every community is going to be different. By doing this at the state level, what works for Phoenix is not going to work for San Luis, Arizona. What's going to work for San Luis, Arizona is not going to work for Flagstaff or Prescott. So that needs to be done at the municipal level. There's other ways to help make affordable housing. Speaking again for what I know about my district, LD23, we have so much state trust land so much federal land that is surrounding our communities, that if it was an easier access to that land, that would hopefully help the cost of land, which anyone that works in construction or understands the model for building a house and so forth, the biggest cost is always the cost of the land and the development, infrastructure-wise, and the cost of the dirt. So if we're able to get some of the land to be easier accessible for our developers and the communities, that might help bring affordable housing closer to the communities and to the residents.
And Representative Sandoval, your thoughts on the Starter Homes Act and the notion of deregulation of city zoning?
Right. Well, I believe if this is the right bill, because there were several, but I believe this bill didn't apply to certain cities with certain population sizes. So I don't think it would have applied to San Luis because it didn't meet the threshold for the population. I think it was over 75,000 residents or something like that, if it is that one. And I also think that the bill had language in there that made it like, that left it up to the city to decide whether that's something that they should or could do in their cities, right? As we know, a lot of these zoning laws were passed back in the day where they were created for racist reasons to keep certain individuals out of certain communities. And so we do need some sort of reforming of our zoning laws. I don't know that we need to force it on everybody. I think that I believe in local control. I think that I believe it is this bill that had the option for the cities and had exclusions if it didn't meet certain population requirements. They didn't have to do this. But I think one of the most useful ways, and we were fighting this last budget to try to get that in there, was the light tech tax credit. That would have created low-income housing. That would have helped many people. Housing is after the inflation or before the inflation is like the #1 issue for folks in Arizona. And not just in Arizona. I belong in the International Committee, and we've traveled abroad to different countries. They have the same issue: housing and lack of workforce. And so I think light tech would help. Smaller lot sizes, smaller houses. So changing some of these requirements for folks to be able to build in smaller spaces and getting rid of burdensome requirements that would allow lower income people to access a space to live. I think that would be helpful.
Well, I think that's actually my next question, and we'll start with Mr. Holmes on this one. What specific policies would you support to make housing more accessible to middle and low income buyers?
Well, yeah, I'm not real in favor of deregulation right away. Deregulating something means you're just giving the power to somebody to do whatever they want sometimes, and we don't just deregulate something without digging further as into why we're doing it. We all want affordable housing. We all want to make it better. The way to do it sometimes is just not to hand out the free money to everybody and say, here you go. We've got to solve the problem behind what's causing the inflation. Cannot just keep giving free money out if you're just going to keep expanding the state as you're doing, because you keep expanding the state. For every good paying job you bring into Arizona, it creates at least 20 low paying jobs. And those low paying jobs, you've got to figure have to find housing too. So you're counteracting the problem sometimes. You're not actually solving it by just giving everything away. So we've really got to say is how we're going to do this if we're going to let this keep happening, and stop thinking about deregulating everything just because it satisfies it for the moment, because these things will just continue to happen, and we'll keep trying to find ways to make affordable housing when it's staring us right there in the faces. We're just bringing in too many lower paying jobs for every good paying jobs. We keep doing it at this pace in a desert that we're living in without the resources to support everybody that we're doing this for. You're going to have a baby New York on your hands. Is that what we want here in the state of Arizona, is a New York City? Because that's where we're going with everything right now.
Representative Sandoval, you certainly touched on this in your previous answer, but specific policies you support to make housing more accessible to middle and low income earners.
Right. So I will reiterate, Light Tech, I think, would have been a useful tool for us to be able to create more affordable housing. And last budget, we were able to allocate $150 million to the Housing Trust Fund. This session, they were able to get another 15 million in there. And I think incentivizing first-time home buyers, using some of that money to help first-time home buyers get into a house that is smaller and more affordable will help, I think, get more people with roofs over their heads.
All right, and Councilman Rosales, your thoughts, specific policies you support to make housing more accessible to middle and low income earners.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, some policy that we need to work on is the state trust land. Get some of that land released to the general developers out there with some conditions to make sure they're not abusing the land. But I don't see policies in regards to giving assistance to first-time buyers or down payment programs or tax credits to developers as a negative for our state or as a handout. Because at the end of the day, when you get a buyer into their house, a lot of the times that what holds them back is the down payment amount. If there are some programs out there with its protections and oversight to allow these first-time buyer families to buy a home, that at the end of the day creates the domino effect. You have buyers moving into a house. What's the next thing they're going to do? They're going to go and buy furniture for their house. They're going to go ahead and buy, go be part of the community, go spend money at the local restaurants, and that becomes economic growth for our state. But we need to do it in a smart way, provide these programs to allow the people that are stuck in that limbo, because let's be honest, right now, if you're buying a $250,000 home at a 7% interest, you're looking at a $2,000 mortgage. Most families' incomes haven't met that threshold to be able to afford that, and the down payment is going to be the biggest issue. We're fortunate that most of our rural district has USDA financing available, so buyers are able to buy homes with zero down payment and also get lower interest rates at longer terms. But those type of programs are the ones that we need for the other communities that don't qualify for those, like our constituents in Goodyear and Buckeye that might not qualify for USDA, or in the Tucson area. We want to make sure that they have those down payment assistance programs available, and that at the end is going to create economic growth to everybody. They're going to hire a plumber, they're going to hire a painter, maybe to fix up the house. It is all positive. I don't see it as a negative.
I wanted to ask you guys about taxes, and we'll start with Representative Sandoval on this one. Arizona derives its funds from three main taxing sources. We have the sales tax, the personal income tax, and corporate taxes. Can you tell our viewers, in your opinion, in each of those three areas, are the tax rates too high, too low, or just about right, with sales taxes, personal income taxes, and corporate taxes?
Well, we have a 2% flat tax that was instituted by Governor Ducey right before he left. About 75% of the corporations only pay the minimum amount to incorporate, which is $50 to $75, I believe, per corporation. And so I guess the short answer is we don't have the proper tax revenue coming in to support our state, because the leadership of the state has cut and not thought about, how are we going to pay the bills? How are we going to keep the lights on in the state buildings? How are we going to make sure schools get funded, healthcare programs get funded, and all the other things that we have to take care of at the state level? And so we definitely need to restructure the way our tax system is in Arizona. We need to make sure that companies, corporations, big corporations are paying their fair share. When I was on the school board, we had huge corporations come in the Loop 303, and they were considered a free trade zone. And so they didn't have to pay taxes to the school board. They didn't have to pay taxes to the local schools. And we had to, we saw that came in front of us. And so these corporations come into the community, they want public schools to educate and train their future workforce, but they have no skin in the game. They're not investing in the schools that all of us are paying for. Parents often pay 2-3 times for the same public education. You know, we're paying property taxes. We're paying bond taxes. We're paying income taxes. We're paying sales tax. We're paying fees because in 2007, when the legislature cut funding to public schools, they allow them to start charging fees. So one year we generated $300,000 in fees. We charge high school students to park, to come to school. Why do we charge high school students to park to school? Because schools needed a way to find revenue because the state isn't providing a source of a dedicated source of revenue for our public schools and many of the other programs in our state that need revenue to survive.
Councilman Rosales, your thoughts on the 3 different taxes we're talking about: sales tax, personal income taxes, corporate taxes. In each of those 3 areas, tax rates too high, too low, or just about right?
Well, you know, like Senator Fernandez mentioned in his earlier answer, our prior leadership made hard tax cuts to the state, which has impacted us in our budget now. We're seeing that effect 2-3 years down the road, especially in our education funding, which we just finished answering some questions how important that is. I think the answer and what we need to be doing as a state is, you know, I understand that the idea is to bring more corporations, more businesses into our state of Arizona, but they need to pay their fair share. What that amount is, that's something that needs to be analyzed and work together. I'm not going to say I have that expertise because I'm not there yet and I'm not fully vetted on those questions. I understand that, you know, the flat rate did hurt our state a lot, especially for smaller communities like rural communities like San Luis, Arizona, that only rely on sales tax revenue. We don't have a property tax. We're a border community with an infrastructure of 40,000 population, but with 8 million people crossing on an annual basis into our streets. So they need to pay their fair share at the corporate level, but also keep it where it's feasible for them to want to be in Arizona.
All right, and Mr. Holmes, your thoughts about the sales tax, the personal income tax, and the corporate tax in each of those areas: too high, too low, just about right?
Well, that's a trick question because, you know, I mean, to say too high, too low, or just right when you really haven't. I mean, I'm not there yet. I don't know what these corporations are getting. A lot of times, the incentives that the mass incentives that they're getting to be here, to come here, to when they're here, and they're not paying while they're here. I want to take a look at all this to be sure that they're paying their fair share, like my other two constituents are talking about, to take the burden off a lot of us. And so this would help fund a lot. I understand what Governor Ducey had done. I don't think it was the right thing to do, but we need to move forward and make that work for all of us, because it didn't work when he did it. And I don't, like I say, really want to increase taxes on anyone until I know who and why and how much. But some of it is not being paid for, like you were saying, by the few. And I want to find out why and what they should be paying.
All right. This next
follow up really quickly on that. So the leadership has also made it almost impossible for us, even if we wanted to increase taxes, we wouldn't have the ability to unless we had 2/3 of each of the chambers to be able to raise taxes. So it's nearly impossible to raise taxes in Arizona, even if we wanted to.
I want to shift to immigration, and we'll start with Councilman Rosales on this one. Where do you believe the state of Arizona has room to take more action or provide more resources in the realm of border security and immigration? These are federal issues, but does the state have any kind of role in that?
No, I mean, that is a federal responsibility, and both sides have let us down. What I can comment is that San Luis, again, and pretty much all the border communities in Arizona are the safest communities to live in. So that would be a federal issue. I'm proud to say my city of San Luis has been #1 and #2 safest city in the state of Arizona for the past 2-3 years. and we're a border community. That's pretty much what I have on that subject.
All right. And Mr. Holmes, your thoughts. Is there room for Arizona to take more action or provide more resources in the realm of border security and immigration, even though these are federal issues?
Well, thank you, Jim. And most people, they like to say they're federal issues, but what it actually is it becomes a state issue. And what we're doing is we're relying on the federal government to make a move. And by the time they make a move in the federal government, who knows what will happen to this state and the surrounding states around us. I don't believe, because like all the other subjects we've been talking about, that we just can't accommodate the amount of those that want to be here and those that are coming here, even though as much as we want to, and as much as it may sound like that we can help them in that way, we just don't, as a desert, have the resources, especially the water, especially these things that we're talking about. How are we going to just let everybody be here at whim? So, in what you were talking about, do we have some say in that? Yes, I believe we do. And I believe it's humane, it's the right thing to do, and it was enacted, it is law, and it was upheld by the Supreme Court, and that is E-Verify. And I'm sorry that, you know, we have to do something here in the state because obviously our federal government doesn't seem to want to step up and do their part. So it's just as simple as those wanting to be here, just to have the employers verify that they're eligible to work in this state. It's as far as I know, the law is simple. It makes it happen, and we need to do something because we cannot, as a border state, allow this to happen in a state we don't already have the resources here for to even take care of our own people. So let's slow it down, and that's one way I think we can do it.
Representative Sandoval, your thoughts. Does the state of Arizona have room to take more action or provide more resources in the realm of border security or immigration, even though these are federal issues?
Well, to a certain degree, right? I understand that, and by the way, none of the border communities that like Mr. Rosales mentioned have ever mentioned immigration as being an issue. The people that have an issue with the border are the people that don't live by the border or live far away from the border. But the local border communities, they're not. I have not heard anybody complain, and we serve 230 miles of U.S.-Mexico border. But with that said, there is a tribe, the Tohono O'odham, and I have been there. I've spoken to chairman. There are sometimes groups that are coming through the nation, and what local border communities are doing is spending some of their local resources to help out the immigration officers because the federal government hasn't kept up with hiring enough individuals, or people are living, I don't know what the issue is, but they take a really long time to hire an agent, I think like a 3-year process, and they're behind. And so they don't have enough agents at the border. So sometimes the local law enforcement agencies have to come and help, whether it be, police or fire or the local, hospitals. But it isn't something that has been overwhelming. The governor did send the National Guard to the border. The governor did send additional funding to the border communities, law enforcement. The governor has done her part to the ability and to the extent that is possible. Now the federal government needs to step up and invest in immigration enforcement. Over 90% of the people that are coming across applying for asylum have a sponsor here. So their plan is not to stay in Arizona. Their plan is to reunite with their family members, wherever they are across the country. Amanda Aguirre runs the Border Regional Health Centers, and she provides shots, immunizations, COVID tests to all the migrants that are coming, and she coordinates some of the transportation of these migrants that are coming across. Now, some people have issue with fentanyl. The majority of the drugs, over 90% of the drugs that are coming into the U.S. are done so through legal ports of entry by U.S. citizens. I have been at the border. I have spoken to Border Patrol. They have given me a briefing more than once, and these are the numbers. This is what they're telling us. And one other thing that people haven't thought about or haven't taken into account is that when we had COVID in the US, and the US got the flu, the rest of the country, these poor countries, they got pneumonia. Those economies were, destabilized. And so a lot of this global migration we're seeing is as a result of that. Because we're not seeing just people from Central America or South America coming in. It's people from all over the world, literally all over the world. Russia, China, Peru, Africa, everywhere. And I saw those numbers too. Like the Border Patrol has a website you can check, and it tells you all the people that are coming from what country they're coming from. And so I think the governor has done what we can, and the federal government now needs to step up and invest in more enforcement. I mean, I wish every port of entry had an X-ray machine. That way, every vehicle coming in will get checked. I also wish that the state would think about the infrastructure on San Luis, Arizona, because we're growing the port of entry from 8 to 16 ports of entry. But are we thinking about the infrastructure? That infrastructure cannot handle all that traffic that's going to be coming in through that port of entry. And so there is definitely more investment needed, not just at the border, but in the local infrastructure for the border communities.
Jim,
All
can I
right.
touch on that real quick?
Well, very,
That's
very, we're out of
okay.
time.
No,
so-
well, we could hire more border patrol, but a catch and release from the border patrol isn't obviously going to work. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to say.
Okay. We are to closing statements. We're out of time. This has gone by very quickly. We will begin. Representative Sandoval, you went last with the opening, so you get to go first with the closing. 1 minute.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time here today. I feel incredibly honored and humbled in the ways in which I have been able to serve our community. The work we have done has been meaningful and impactful. The voters of LD23 have an important choice to make on July 30th and again in November. You will choose your next state representatives. The legislature has the power and capacity to shape everyday lives of Arizonans. This seat can change the control of our state legislature, and we still have much work to do. We need to make sure we're fully funding our K-12 schools and making college affordable and accessible, enact universal health care to cover everyone at lower cost, lower prescription drugs, stop the attacks on our democracy, and protect our water and our natural resources. I will continue to advocate for you the same way that I advocate for my own family at the state legislature. I look forward to earning your trust, your support, and your vote on July 30th and again on November 5th. Please visit my website, sandovalforac.com, for more information, or follow me on social media platforms at sandovalforac. Thank you so much.
All right, Councilman Rosales, 1 minute for an closing statement.
Thank you, Jim. Again, thank you again to Clean Elections for hosting the debate. We most of us worry, and we hear the news and we worry about the health of our democracy. And this is one of those venues that show that democracy is alive and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. As an elected official here for the city of San Luis for the past 12 years, I've worked on binational projects, economic growth for our region, for our district. Bringing in this new port of entry that was mentioned, that was a $380 million project. Working alongside with Senator Fernandez, we were able to get those $25 million for our Cesar Chavez expansion. And I look forward to learning and working together with Ms. Sandoval and touching base on her experience as a representative for our state. And just remind everybody that I'm here to work for my community, for my district. As my parents, when they came to the United States as immigrants in the late 60s, early 70s, they wanted something better for their family. That's what I did when I moved to Arizona. Now I'm here paving the way for my kids and hoping for everybody to come out and vote on July 30th. The goal is to vote and help our state grow in a prosperous way for our economy, our education, and preserving our personal freedoms. So again, thank you, and I look forward to serving my community.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. And Mr. Holmes, you have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Jim and the Clean Elections Committee. I appreciate everything you've done. Thank you. Like I say, it's a lot to be done. I'm here for the people, so much more than the politics. I'm here because I think that things need to be done different, just because of what we've been seeing in our state for quite a few years, and I don't think it's headed in the right direction. So I look forward to working with Mr. Rosales or Ms. Sandoval, because I really respect them just being here today. So I appreciate all your support, all your help. My name is Jimmy Holmes, State House 23, and any questions, anything you can think of to ask me, I appreciate anything. And you can find me at holmes4az@gmail.com. And again, thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right. We've been talking for an hour. There were so many topics to discuss. We could probably go for another hour, but this does conclude our debate. To our candidates, thank you very much for participating. To the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves before the July 30th primary election. And we encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information. I'm Jim Ninsel from the Tucson Sentinel. Thank you very much for tuning in.